Train, Study, Work, Repeat. The LUNEX Unfiltered podcast on balancing sports, studies, and internships. In this podcast, we talk to professional athletes who have a student-athlete status at LUNEX. Obtaining such status allows the athletes to flexibly combine their training, competitions, and studies. Hello and welcome to the LUNEX Unfiltered podcast, Train, Study, Work, Repeat, to be precise. And in today's show, we are talking to Eleonore Hiller, who is a cyclist and triathlete, member of the national Belgian triathlon team. She is silver and bronze medalist in the 2022 and 2023 Duathlon World Championships and student at LUNEX. Thank you very much, Eleonore, for coming today.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I can't wait to do the podcast.
Okay, good. So let's get on to it from the very beginning. So I'm just looking a little bit at the notes and at what you already told me, what I know. You basically call yourself both a cyclist and a triathlete and a duathlete. So let's start with the cycling. I guess that was the introduction to sports for you, or was it something else, or was it running?
So I've always been an active child, but too much energy. And my parents signed me up to an athletics club since I was very little. So I've been running since as long as I can remember. Then I joined a triathlon team because it was a great way to learn to swim, and I really enjoyed cycling. And during COVID, the lockdown, that's when I really started to train seriously and optimize my potential. But then again, the swimming pools were closed. So that's why duathlon of running, cycling, running is my strong suit, because I started swimming very late, and running and cycling, what I'm genetically best at and what I enjoy training most.
So starting with the running part, you said that you were a small child when you started running. How does it look actually for small children? Like, do you already start racing, or it's kind of more fun part than anything else?
Well, I think it really depends what coach you have. What club you're in and so on. I would say that I had more of, when I was a child, more serious training, because my coach saw that I had the potential and I was doing cross-country races. And so the trainings weren't as much games, but I saw people around me who were playing games. But that's what I enjoyed. I enjoyed running, I enjoyed track sessions, and I enjoyed racing. Just getting all my energy out there on the weekends and trying to win when I could.
It's great that you mentioned the coaches, right? Because it obviously very much depends on that. Do you have any role models in there? Was there someone who just really inspired you to continue with running, or there later on with triathlon?
There's someone who's really struck me as my current coach, who I literally couldn't hope or dream of someone better as a coach. So as a role model, he has definitely shaped me. But all along my athlete career, I respect all the coaches that I've had. I haven't had any particularly bad experiences, but they've all shaped me to be the person that I am today. I've learned so much. Although I wouldn't call most of them role models, they were definitely part of the overall experience. And yeah, as I said, shaped me to be the person I am today. And I've learned so many mistakes and what works. And yeah, no, I'm very grateful for the journey I've had, because it's been a good one overall.
So how do you actually train duathlon, triathlon? Because, from a layman perspective, we get it, they're different sports, but you have to somehow, balance it out. Do you focus on one sport more than the other? Or how does it work?
Triathlon, yeah, as you said, is the combination of 3 disciplines, and if not 4, because there's also strength training. So it's a very time-consuming sport. Most people don't know, but I also have a part-time job as a student job in a shop, working 15 hours a week. So balancing training, university and work has been a real challenge for the past 2 years. And it's not something I recommend to anyone. And now I've lightened my schedule and it's going to stay like that. So basically what training involved is training before waking up in the morning, going either for a swim or run, and then going straight to university or work, and then spending one day or half a day and then doing the other one. So if it was university, going to work, and if it was work, going to university, and then coming back home and doing another training, finishing at anywhere between 8 and 9 o'clock in the evening, having dinner, and then up early the next day. So it's an enormous amount of discipline. And yeah, consistency is really hard, especially in the bad weather in Luxembourg. But the game changer was being organised and planning ahead. So I knew I would send my schedule to my boss, my work schedule, based on my university classes. And so when I had written both my university classes and my work hours on a sheet of paper, then I would fit in the trainings for the following week. Every Sunday I sit down and plan my week out with the trainings and make sure to make time for them instead of waiting to have time to train.
Nowadays, it's very popular to discuss work-life balance. I'm just wondering, do you plan in friends meeting them or something like that?
So that's a very good question, because I really strongly believe that you are not your sport and that you need to have friends on the side to sort of keep a balance, because I could get injured tomorrow. And the reality is the sports world is unforgiving. So once you're out, few people will be checking up on you, how are you doing and so on. So I've always found it so important to keep my friends on the side. And so the reality is that in Luxembourg, my social life is training. My friends, I see them doing training, they're athletes, are high-level athletes, but I do have my friends from secondary or high school in Belgium that I am still very close with, and that we will always see each other as much as we can, but I know that they'll always have my back. And I try and keep in contact to a certain extent, but I know that it's not perfect, and it's definitely, I don't go partying and I don't see them every week and so on. So yeah, I would say sport is my social life.
Okay, and it's also, I guess, because your friends understand you better if they are athletes themselves.
Yes, absolutely. But then again, in Luxembourg, I've made my triathlon friends at my age or younger, so that's really nice. But I've also made a lot of adult friends who I go riding with on Sundays, who I really get along well with. So I'll also call them part of my social life, but I'm really with people of all ages and experiences. So that's what I admire of sport, is that it's really universal, so everybody can join and you meet so many new people. And that's what's kept me in Luxembourg. It's sport. Because otherwise I'm a very extroverted person, and Luxembourg is quite, I don't want to use the word boring, but a lonely place. And through sport, I've been able to meet incredible people and incredible places. So yes.
I think it very much depends also where you move from, if you're moving here, right? The comparison you had, the lifestyle you had before you moved in here, and at which stage of your life you are in. But it's important that, sport is definitely one of those places where you can meet new people and share it and do it together if possible. Although I would assume that the training is very lonely.
To be honest, it is, especially triathlon is an individual sport. And that was something that was particularly hard for me when I was balancing all three things, is that I would often find myself having to fit in trainings at not very conventional times. So early in the morning or late in the evening, which therefore meant that I would be training on my own. Whereas my teammates who are in the specialise, for example, they have their trainings during the day, and so they're able to train on their own. But I'm someone who quite enjoys training on my own, because that really allows me to respect my zones. Overall, I'm very happy to train alone. So that wasn't too difficult for me. But I know for some people it's impossible. And so that I wouldn't recommend forcing yourself to train alone in a way.
Yeah, I guess you have to be, as you say, certain type of a personality to fit it. And also the planning part comes into play hugely. I would say for me, I'm not a professional athlete, but one of the tricky part is to fit in the food as well. Because sometimes you are actually able to train, but you're like, I should first eat, and then I have to wait a couple of hours, and then I can actually train.
That's not been always perfect, because often my go-to thing is just to go to buy something ready-made, or just pasta, a lot of pasta. And it's not, I really do my best, and I spend a lot of time thinking as to how to make nutritionally balanced meals and so on. But it's definitely one of the harder aspects. And yeah, trying to have balanced meals. I think, as an athlete, you can never have too much food. But the question is, trying to get in enough between all the different activities you're doing. Especially that's something I quite admire from LUNEX, is that when I'm here in class, I've never been reproached to be eating in class, for example. So that's something the teachers know, that you're a high level athlete, and they know that you need to eat. So that's something I'm very grateful for.
As you mentioned that, let's move a bit to the studying part, as you said. So we have the eating in class part, but also other things. What is actually LUNEX experience for you personally?
Well, I'll give a little story behind it. So after the first year in LUNEX, I wanted to leave. So I told my bachelor coordinator that I wanted to leave, and he wrote me the most amazing referral letter I could ever have hoped for, that I'm still grateful to this day for. And that's actually for me what's the LUNEX experience, is that each lecturer knows you as a person. They know and they want what's best for you. So that lecturer didn't write the letter because he wanted to see me leave. He wrote it because he wanted what was best for me and he wanted me to be happy. So for me, the LUNEX experience is really a community where the teachers and the students are really close, and the lecturers know each student individually and truly want what's best for them, and will help them in any way, shape or form they can. And don't even get me started on networks. Like, you seem to know through the lectures anyone you want.
That's very interesting, that kind of individual approach. And I think it's also very special because some of the students can get a student athlete status, right? And that's even more personalized and more flexible.
Yes. That's something I'm forever grateful for. And definitely that is what has helped me get my degree whilst training. So it's allowed me to go on training camps, on races. Yeah, so for those of you who don't know, the student athlete status allows you to have a bit more flexibility with it for attending classes, for example, but also for exams. So when I was on a training camp, I could move my exams a bit later on to be able to study for them correctly. So it's really something that has been absolutely key in my success. And for me, I don't regret LUNEX at all, particularly for the student athlete status, because it's been fundamental.
And on top of it, the teachers, the lecturers, as you said, that know you and know your needs. So you wanted to leave, and after the first year, you got convinced to stay.
Yes.
What did you actually study, and what are your plans later on?
So, I started in sport and exercise science, which I really, really enjoyed. But I'm someone who really enjoys listening to podcasts and learning. And I think we'll talk about it a bit later, but my internships, so I did it in mostly sports science-based areas. And so for my third year in LUNEX, you have the possibility to specialise in a certain topic. And I chose international sports management because it's something I knew far less about. And I really don't regret my decision because it's so different, but I think so important. Because I feel like in sport and exercise science, you've got all the materials in your head, but you don't know how to apply them. Whereas in international sports management, you learn everything you've learned, how to apply it in the real world and how to make a job out of it, how to make money and so on. So, and how to sell yourself as a person, because it's very well knowing the best things, but if you can't sell yourself to the job world, you're going to have trouble making a living. So it's something I'm very grateful to have had that choice and to have made that choice.
Well, you're talking about making a living, but I thought you want to make a living from being a professional athlete.
Well, no, actually, being a full-time professional athlete is never something I've aspired to be, because precisely as I mentioned earlier on in the podcast, most athletes, well, if you get injured, if you have burnout or something, I've always wanted something keeping my feet on the floor and reminding me what the real world is like. So I want to keep on doing high-level sports, but with a part-time job on the side or a master's degree. But for the time being, I have no aspiration to be a full-time professional athlete.
It sounds very, very difficult. You just mentioned that combining the three, so work, studying and sports, are too much. So
no, but precisely 3 is too much. 2 I've done and it's far more achievable. And precisely a part-time job there's a few people I know who do it and they balance it superbly and I really aspire to be like them. So part-time job, no problem, but not 3.
That's a bit crazy. Okay, I get it. International sports management. What is that about? Actually, I have no idea. So I hope you tell us, also the listeners, a little bit more.
Our last module, which really particularly strikes me, was entrepreneurial module. And so we really learned the ins and outs of being an entrepreneur, which is something that lots of people aspire to be, especially in the sports world where people want to become fitness coaches, nutrition coaches and so on. But all the work that is behind it, or to make it a successful and viable business, it's not to be underestimated. So that's something that I really learned and appreciated. Other modules we had is learning some finances, which is also essential, and learning to sell yourself, so pitch yourself, learning how to present yourself, how to compose your body and so on. So it's been a really, really interesting, also in talking about innovation in sports and all of that. So really more on the management and the business side of sports, less on the scientific core science, but just as interesting. I really, really enjoyed the modules.
That sounds really great, because it means that wherever you actually end up, you have skills that can help you with whichever job you choose to have. These are just kind of very useful skills for any point in life.
Exactly. Now, I really think that the International Sports Management has opened its doors to everything. Everything is so is the definition of transferable skills.
We'll talk about it a bit later, because of course I'm going to ask you about your plans in the future. But I wanted to jump back to duathlon, actually, and triathlon and everything. So we have this idea, starting with duathlon, as you said, that's running, biking, running.
Precisely, yes.
What are the distances?
So it depends. For duathlon, it's pretty standard. Well, it's either sprint duathlon, which is a 5-kilometer run, followed by a 20-kilometer bike ride, and another 2.5-kilometer run. And Olympic distances, which is a 10K run, a 20K bike, and a 5K run. So it depends. Each race is one or the other, but there's not one which is far more common than the other.
What is the reason that the second run is shorter?
I'm not sure quite the reason behind it, but it's hard enough as it is. So I'm not asking anyone to make it any longer.
No, of course, I know it's also very funny, right? When you just get off the bike and start running, because your legs are just, you really have to adapt after a long race.
It's I want to say practice makes perfect. So after, it's hard, you don't usually win your first race, because especially duathlon. Often people say that triathlon training is harder just because you have to combine 3 sports, but duathlon races are harder because it's just from the start, all out.
So when you train for duathlon, can you say that you look more at your abilities and you focus more on one sport because of your, I don't know, gaps in it, or do you actually split it 50-50?
Well, so far, it's better in triathlon and duathlon. It was mostly like a swim and a bike, or run and a bike warm up, and it was the fastest runner who won. So that's what triathlon was like until recently, basically. And it's only recently, especially with the Brownie brothers in England, who revolutionized the sport by really challenging the swim and the bike leg of the sport. So now it's not the fastest runner who wins, it's the person who's really the most complete in the 3 sports. So if you take the top level athletes in the world, triathletes, they won't be able to win a gold medal in each of the individual 3 disciplines in the Olympics, but they'll be part of the best runners in the world, part of the best cyclists in the world, and part of the best swimmers in the world at the same time. So most athletes don't put a particular focus on one sport. We really try and divide as best as we can. Of course, if you've got a weakness, that's what you've got to work on most, but we try and divide it as best possible. Cycling will always take more time because the nature of the sport as an endurance, like you're just riding, takes more time than running. So, at the end of the day, it's trying to get as best balance as possible.
Do you also train transitions?
Before the races, I'm not the best at them, so it's not the best person to ask. But before races, we do, but it's not something we fit in to training like as much as the other. It's like the cherry on the cake before the races.
Another thing for me when it's triathlon is absolutely impressive when you have this big group of people who jump into the water. And I'm always impressed that it's actually not fighting for survival. It's really swimming.
Yes, there's a lot of kicking going on, and especially with the I feel like with the women it's always a bit nicer, but with the men it's particularly harsh. There's a lot of fighting and kicking. You've got to defend your position, and that's not my strength. But for me, the race starts once you get out of the water, because for me the swimming is a survival mode, because you're often very cold waters and not very nice usually in rivers and lakes. So yeah, for me the swim is definitely the survival mode, and then the bike and the run is when the race starts.
Is there a particular reason why the the order is like that you start with
Well,
swimming?
actually, I just learned about recently is that the swimming is the most dangerous. So basically, it's better to have that at the beginning rather than the end. Because in a triathlon started with as Ironman, so the long distances. And so if you swam at the end, well, that'd be particularly dangerous. And the other explanation I've been told is that in triathlons, you start swimming horizontally, then on the bike, you're sort of a middle position, and then when you're running, you're vertically. So it's sort of coming up. I don't know, that's the two explanations I've been told, but
both sound very equally interesting, so who knows? Who knows? Okay, coming back to LUNEX part, but also the internship part, because you mentioned that as well. So one of the possibilities here is not only, very applied science that you're learning and applied skills, but also a chance to do some internships. So can you tell me a little bit about them and what has your experience been?
So the internship's a pretty nice opportunity because I know that you don't get the opportunity everywhere. In French and Belgian universities, it's rare. But I saw stats that in British universities, 90% of students who do an internship get a job right after, like their university degree finishes. And so for me, in my first year, I did an internship in a sort of multidisciplinary lab in Belgium, where we did some bike fittings, where there was a sports psychologist. We did some physiological testing, lactate, running, cycling, all of that. And there was also sports physio, really a wide range of practitioners. So I learned a lot, to be honest, and I'm very grateful for the opportunity of spending 3 weeks there. But I must say, one of the things that shocked me the most is just how hard it was my first experience as a job, let's say. So being somewhere on time, spending the whole day there, copying what you'd been doing in the morning all day long, because fundamentally, like a bike fitting or a sports psychologist, every patient has their individual needs, but the fundamental principles are the same. So you're sort of copy pasting everything. So that really was quite eye-opening. Whereas in my second year, I did it with the Triathlon National Federation of Luxembourg, which was really an amazing experience. And I really saw everything, because they have a very, very strong team and very dedicated coach. And so I saw everything that goes behind the performance of these athletes at international level, and how consistency, how everything is optimized, and see the training bear its fruits. So that was also a really eye-opening experience. And so honestly, I learned a lot through those 2 internships. It's shaped me for my future decisions, and it's also shaped me. I think those 2 internships were what allowed me to choose the international sports management rather than the sports science, because I wanted to learn something new. And because I discovered that it's not really what I wanted to do later on.
But then you said you kind of was the first time you did something very repetitive, but you work in a bike shop right now. Isn't that repetitive?
That was, I started working in the bike shop afterwards. And I actually prefer working in the bike shop to the multidisciplinary lab, because precisely people who come to the bike shop, I was lucky that it was a bike shop where we had quite a lot of cyclists who really wanted a bike to ride fast. And so it's people who came to the shop because they wanted to be there, they wanted a bike, so it was their leisure activity. Whereas when you're going to a sports psychologist or something, or a bike fitting, you're stressed, I enjoyed both the experiences, but the working in the bike shop came after, so I hadn't worked before the internship. There you go.
Okay, so you understood a little bit and then you moved to the bike shop, let's say. Okay, understand that. So how is it actually? Because as you do it on a regular basis, I was just wondering, do you apply a lot of knowledge from your professional practice, or do you have to actually read up to give advice to people, or the advice that people look for is pretty simple?
So it really depends. It honestly depends. So for some things, some specific topics, I can often get a bit too excited explaining everything, but the clients usually like it. Whereas for other disciplines of cycling, such as mountain bike, I'm less confident. So for the text and specs, I have to look up online or ask my colleagues. But that's what I've really enjoyed is I've learned so much that at the end of the day, even if I don't know first time, I just learn it on the spot. So, and the clients are often happy to learn with you. Well, for those who don't judge you because you're a young female selling bikes, because it's quite rare. So
it does happen sometimes.
It's far too much, far too often.
No, really, I would have assumed that that's not going to be the case within this day and age.
No, honestly, it's we've had people come into the shop and say, "Oh, can I have someone who knows what they're talking about?"
Oh, well, bikes. You said bike shop, you said triathlon or duathlon bike. So I guess if you see someone passing on the bike, you always look what the bike is and you analyze whether you like it or not. Impossible to just not notice.
Yeah, no, but I still believe that I have the nicest bike out there. So
that's the most important thing.
It is.
But I also do believe that in Luxembourg, there are quite a few good bikes, right?
Precisely, yeah. That's the thing. That's why I particularly enjoyed working in this shop, is that the people came and often have a larger purse than in other countries. And so they don't necessarily need the top bike, but they want the top bike to show to their colleagues and friends that they have the best bike. I quite enjoy that, to be honest. The bikes are in Luxembourg. It's quite impressive to see what the average person gets as their average bike, which in most places would be, which are the Tour de France bikes. The bikes they're using the Tour de France is by professional riders, and sometimes even better. So.
Do you think these people actually get to bike that much? Because I would assume that, if you're not a professional cyclist, you don't go out in weather conditions that are not very...
No, it's funny, as soon as a client comes into the shop, we can straight away tell if they're going to be the sort of person who buys the bike and keeps it in the garage as a decoration, or who's actually going to ride it. But as soon as there's a drop of rain, forget it. It's very rare that people take the bikes out. So there's a real mix. But most people, I will be honest, will take the bikes out once a week at a push.
And you, how often a week?
So riding, that is very complicated to ride. It's one of my favourite disciplines to train along with running. But I've been running far more because cycling just is so time consuming. But I always make a point to do one long 100 kilometre plus ride on Sundays. And then in the week, sometimes I haven't been able to ride in the week, if I have to be honest, but I try to do once or twice. But yeah, it's rare that I don't. It's a bit biased opinion because I've just come out of a very stressful period. So I'm thinking about the past few weeks. But I would say in general, riding, 3 times a week-ish.
And home trainer too?
I hate home trainer. I'm an outdoor girl, 100%. You won't find me running on a treadmill and you won't find me riding on a home trainer.
So even if it's, snowing and
the mountain bike out.
For me, I thought that there are moments when you really can't, just for your personal safety.
Yes, but I will maybe once or twice a year go onto the home trainer, 3 times a push. But usually you adapt, so you can replace it by a run. You wait a bit for the rain to stop or something. But there's solutions most of the time.
If you were to give a piece of advice to people who are considering to train and study, what would you tell them? Of course, we already got that maybe working, studying and training together, not, but...
Organisation, 100%. Organisation. Keep on top of things. Plan out ahead. So whether it be 1 week ahead, 1 month ahead. I used to do a month ahead, but people's schedules change. So that's a bit complicated. I sit down every Sunday. Sunday is my reset day. So say I wash my bed sheets, hoover my room, plan out my week, meal prep, as much food as I can, fill up my fridge, go food shopping, and then go for my long ride.
Sundays shops are closed. Normally.
Sunday morning. So Sunday is my reset and be productive day. So get everything ready for the week. So wake up, go food shop, go for a long ride, come home, wash the bed sheets, wash the sheets, meal prep. And at the end of the day, I'll dedicate an hour to getting at least 1 week ahead completely ready with the trainings, with the work hours, with the university hours. That's, for a must do every week.
But I do know that this is going to finish soon because you're planning to have a gap year.
So next year it's been I've had a lot of thought as to what I want to do because I'm someone who needs a lot of things going on. And so next year I'm hoping to do a gap year, so focus on sports, but not only. So move back to Brussels probably, but travel to Girona, to Lyon, somewhere a bit sunnier. And so have either a part-time job, come back to Luxembourg a few days a week to train with my coach. So have a gap year, focus on sports, but always have something going on the side.
And the future, what does the future hold?
So good question. It's something that it's like most people, I knew exactly what I wanted to do when I was a child. But as the years go on, I'm sort of asking myself more questions. But all I know I want to work in is somewhere related to sports, related to promoting sports for the general population. I'm not focused on high-level performance because I think it's a lot of people focus on that, but we're really in a phase of promoting sports, like it's become a trend. And so I want to work in somewhere which is very innovative, with a young team who are passionate about what they're doing and promoting sports, mainly running and cycling, improve it and get more people into it. So there's a few places in mind that really would attract me, but I'm sort of taking that gap year precisely to make my ideas a bit clearer.
You said general population. So right now, I know you said also that the ideas are still not clear, but I'm just curious, what do you think, what should be done? Because the gap is huge, in my opinion. One of the things that I do notice is that it all starts with PE classes at school, that in a way, the teachers tend to favor the people who have talent for sports and all the rest just is kind of put on the side. Then if you have any events for people to try out things, it's also, I don't feel it's very much for the general public, but it's just my opinion. What is yours?
So in my last module, we had to create a business idea, and I created a business idea around that. So getting people, more adults, because I don't like children, I'm not good with them. So for adults to access sports events, and on the social media, there's this massive trend of starting your run clubs and joining run clubs, joining the whole fitness boom, healthy eating and so on. And something that's I want to jump onto this era and help young people who's just started work and so on, but who want to like install healthy habits from a young age and who want to do their first marathon. So when I'm talking about general population, they can hope to have PRs or do their best in races, but who aren't starting off as high-level athletes. Yeah, no, I think we're really in a time that is like the right time and right place, I should say, to work in this field.
And on top of it, I think that if you look into, those groups of runners going together with others, there's also the aspect we started with. So the fact that you actually meet friends.
Absolutely. In Brussels, I've met this amazing community of runners through social running clubs. And often people are like, oh, but aren't social run clubs and social rides too slow for you? And realistically, I'm there for the people, and you can never go too slow in training. So I've met some incredible people and having so much fun. And now brands and sponsors, so international corporate brands and so on, they're actually sponsoring these run clubs because they find that they attract far more attention than high performance athletes that attract a few people, the social media accounts. But as soon as they get to races, they're one amongst many others. Whereas if you see in the roads everybody wearing the same New Balance shoes, you straight away recognize New Balance. So it's really a world which is developing right now, but which has a lot of potential.
So what reminds is just to keep my fingers crossed for you that, your ideas come to fruition and you will be able to show us something. And good luck with the gap year and the training and all the races that are coming. Thank you so much for sharing a bit of your life with us.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
Train, Study, Work, Repeat is a LUNEX Unfiltered podcast produced by Silex.